Yeah, good evening, class. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Ebishter, God, the creator of the universe, Avinu Malkeini, in Hebrew meaning our Father, our King, who is closer to us at the very moment when we ask for Him, say that for forgiveness. We acknowledge God's presence, God's complexity, and God is our relative. God is our parent, as well as our master, our king, immanent and transcendent. So we need to thank Him for taking us into the new year. So may this new year, 2022, bless you with health, bless us with wealthy, bless us with happiness, out with the old year and new with the new year. So what do we have today? What are we talking about today? We are discussing a very important topic in history. A very important topic. And this topic is there any archaeological evidence for the existence of Jesus? A historical perspective. Is there any archaeological evidence for the existence of Jesus? So that's our topic today. And questions are coming, we are raising questions, say why this topic? Who doesn't know that Jesus existed? Everyone knows. But what you don't even know is that the world events are changing. There are so many scholars from different platforms, be it universities, professors, who are bringing in new knowledge. So we need to be telling the youth. So we also need to venture into study, also need to invest time in study. But that knowledge is coming, whether we like it or not. So, for example, in a recent book by a French philosopher, Michel Onfray, talks of Jesus as a mere hypothesis or myth. It's a book. People are learning about these things. His existence is an idea rather than a historical figure. So this professor is saying in his book, there is a book saying it's a hypothesis. There's nothing like Jesus. So about 10 years ago, there was what we call the Jesus Project, which was set up in the USA. One of its main questions for discussion was that of whether Jesus did exist or not. A conference that was held. Some authors have even argued that, Jesus of Nazareth was doubtfully non-existent, contending that both Jesus and Nazareth are Christian inventions, because they are saying that there was no Nazareth. The Nazareth that we are seeing today, some of us went to Israel. The Nazareth that we saw there in Israel was an invention of Christianity. Around the time of Jesus, there was no Nazareth. So these are facts coming. Well, we are watching. So part of our popular confusion around the world and the historicity of Jesus may be caused by peculiar archaeological arguments raised in relation to him. So now you cannot run away, because there is archaeological evidence coming about the non-existentiality of Jesus. And recently, there have been claims that Jesus was a great grandson of Cleopatra. You see, complete with ancient coins alleged showing Jesus wearing his crown of thorns. So this is some of the information, the knowledge that's coming. What is our position? Because when we hear this happening in this world, what is the position of the church? What is the position of the synagogue? So in some circles, there's this still interesting issue called the Shroud of Turin. Supposedly Jesus' burial shroud. So because it was said by Pope Benedict XVI, stated that it was something that no human artistry was capable of producing. So they are bringing this as evidence that Jesus existed or not. But we as researchers, we are very tired of suffering. for lack of knowledge. We want to know the truth. The only answer to lack of knowledge cannot be found in an external circumstances. The only substance used for healing or medicine for suffering cannot be found in a job. You cannot find a happiness in your job. You cannot find happiness or can be found in your spouse or marriage or children. It cannot be found in moving to one city or to another country or in a new wardrobe or hairstyle. The solution is found in your studying the ways of God, literature around God, because these guys are bringing earth-shattering knowledge about or against the existentiality of Jesus. If someone reads that literature, guys, I don't know. So the reason why we are studying and bringing facts is to try to, especially to teach myself, not to teach anyone, to gather my facts around myself, not just believe, because they are attacking the Bible. They are coming up with facts. You will see as we delve deeper into these studies. So, and one thing you must understand is humanity is satisfied by eating garbage, unhealthy food. We tend to drink garbage. You see, we tend to breathe in garbage. Yet we are what we eat. That is why our bodies are sick. That is why our minds are sick. We eat garbage, not just through our mouth, but through our eyes. You see, not just food is taken in by us through energy. No, not just air, but impressions, opinions, belief systems, through our ears, through our eyes. And these impressions and belief systems are food. They are food. Haven't you noticed that you get hungry for images? That you hunger for a favorite TV show? That you hunger for WhatsApp on your phone? That you hunger for a book or magazine or music? You hunger for them because you need to make a decision. So you want to eat that garbage, if it's garbage. So those impressions are food. They are impressions. You transform them into energy. But unfortunately, the impressions we take in are usually garbage. Now, as scholars, we are investigators of the truth, and we share it with our souls. So, and I know that some readers who support humanist causes and who are deeply immersed in their belief systems will be vocal and vociferous in rejecting this research by throwing a barrage of criticism. But it's okay, it's just a research, it's not me. So this research is by scholars using the most sophisticated historical tools of analysis that are available for research historically. So in this class, we discuss about the Bible not from a theological, confessional, or devotional perspective. We research using university methodologies. Research methodology is the specific procedure or technique that we use to identify, that we use to select, that we use to process and analyze information about a certain topic. It's non-religious, it's non-theological, it's non-confessional. So, and yet large numbers of atheists and humanists and conspiracy theories are raising one of the most pressing questions in history of religion. Did Jesus exist? Possibly, many readers will wonder why a presentation is even necessary explaining that Jesus must have existed. To them, I therefore hear several loud voices out there saying, no, it doesn't matter whether he did exist or not. So, in this presentation, I don't expect to convince anyone in that board. What do I hope? What do I hope? What I do hope is to convince genuine seekers who really want to know how we know that Jesus did exist. All the academic ancestors we use here are non-Christians and have no interest in promoting Christian cause or agenda or a Christian philosophy. No. I myself, I'm a research associate and inquirer. Someone who asks questions or seeks to learn more about something. And the answer to the question of Jesus' historical existence will not make me more or less happy or content, hopeful or likable or rich or famous or immortal. But then as a scholar, evidence matters. You know, when we were trained as PhD students, they told us that evidence matters. And the past or the history matters most. Now, and for anyone to whom both evidence and the past matter is so a dispassionate consideration now of the case makes it plain truth. You see, so like I alluded to when I introduced the topic, the idea is not try to Christianize or to get support or what, just to bring facts to the table so that the people who, you know, want to have more knowledge. This is earth-shattering, and I did it in a series. And so how do historians how do they do their research? Historians use a number of tools to research and organize information. Remember, this is a historical perspective about the existence of Jesus. So how do historians do it to gather this evidence? Yeah, they use now you know you can trace your gene to Mother Eve, the mother of all the people. Now it's traceable. You can trace your gene from using your mother's DNA back to Eve. That is called the mitochondrial Eve, the mother of all human beings. So I'm saying today no one can hide. The research will pick you up. Even the DNAs that are being taken, in Zimbabwe or whatever is happening around the world, you know what's happened. You cannot hide anyway. So mitochondrial Eve refers to the mitochondrial DNA. There's a unique genetic code that is passed down from a female biological ancestor of humans, aptly named the mother of all humans. It's called mitochondrial Eve DNA. So it might seem very unusual or even impossible, but the DNA inside the mitochondria explains everything. There's one DNA that a human child inherits from their mother. So tracing this DNA leads us to mitochondrial Eve, who might have been the biblical Eve that we know from Genesis. So you cannot hide. They can trace now to back to historians can do that, even scientists. So I'm trying to bring in evidence, to gather evidence, how historians did this research to dig out the existence of Jesus. So there's also what we call text twisting harmonization, where a person is supposed another aspect of knowledge or another belief system. So he twists information to suit what they believe or what he or what she believes. So that's another methodology. Another one is the date. The date ones, once a living organism is dead, there is what we call carbon levels. They measure that using carbon 14 levels. There's another methodology they use in history to discover, to investigate They can also use microscopic and biological tests to date that object. Historians can also use photographs. Suppose something is hidden, it's buried down in the earth. Historians can also use what we call ground penetrating radar. There's a radar that picks evidence which is hidden down in the earth's surface, down in the morphistic discontinuity. There's a radar that can go there and pick that information and pick that evidence. So these scholars are bringing all this information through their research. And we have a panel of researchers also, the one that we're talking about now here. So they can also use another methodology called plot location on maps. They can use sonar scanning to find underwater objects. Suppose an object is buried under the water. They have some sonar scanning methodologies, a sophisticated machinery that they can use to find that information. Or they can use picks or hoes or shovels to verify that information. So all these tools were used by historians to try and investigate whether Jesus exists or existed. So I've done this in a series. We'll see a human hand, the Nicene Creed. Where is Roman Catholicism? Who is Constantine? What is the Nicene Creed? What happened? How were documents doctored? Are there any different versions of Jesus? Is the Jesus we're worshiping now, is he the right Jesus, or there's another Jesus? Why is it that there was a kosher Jesus who did not eat who follows some dietary laws, and the other one who doesn't follow dietary laws? What's happening here? So we need this research will bring everything, one ravel everything. You know, all this bits that you have, the research here, it's not me, it's a group of scholars. These historians, you know, had and have such an insatiable desire to know more about Jesus, about what he stood for, what he said, what he did, what he experienced, and then why was he executed. We in this study will touch on all those things. So it is not my purpose in the succeeding subsections to solve the problems once and for all, to the satisfaction of everyone who has ever thought about them. My goal instead is simply to explain why the majority of scholars we have dealt with these matters over the past century, our academic ancestors, have concluded that Jesus who existed is not the Jesus. So these academic ancestors, these scholars, are they saying through research, they have concluded that the Jesus who existed is not the Jesus of the stained glass window, or the second grade Jesus, or the one portrayed on pictures, or from Sunday school, from churches, the Jesus of popular imagination. So there are actually a number of Jesuses in various popular imaginations, but there was a Jesus of history. So I'm looking at the Jesus of history, and there's a good evidence to suggest that he was like. So this is the issue. The Jesus we are worshiping today, is he the Jesus of history, or some Jesus that was created by people at a later date? That's why I'm saying you need to be smart and stay with me until we touch the Nicene Creed. We're going to look at Eusebius, the first century scholars. We're going to look at so many, Constantine, Pliny the Elder, so many. Will bring so many writers from Roman, from canonical and non-canonical, Greek, Egyptian, around Syria, to try to collect data. And so that's what we're going to do. And so I've listed as a scholar and researcher. I didn't do this from trying to just pick from nowhere. It's a research. So I need to be honesty, to avoid plagiarism, to tell you where I got this information. This is a research that was done by our academic ancestors, our historical juggernauts in history. So we have Daniel Botarin. Daniel Botarin was a professor of Talmudic culture and rhetoric at the University of California. As we delve down to the scriptures, into the study, you see him, coming out as we explain. We also have Samuel Tobias Lach, who wrote the rabbinic commentary on rabbinic commentary on New Testament. This is the rabbinic commentary on New Testament. This is the book I'm talking about. When I need to show evidence. So this is the book that was done by Samuel Tobias. So the commentary, and another scholar said this one is did Jesus exist? Did Jesus exist? This was written by Bat D. Amen. So I'm showing you this because this is evident. I don't know, so that some people are likely going to say, no, because it's not written. It's written. So this is another book, the Jewish Gospels by Daniel Botarin. Boyer, like I've told you this one. So there are so many here. So all this information is very important. There's another one here. Two Gods in Heaven. Two Gods in Heaven. You see another book, Two Gods in Heaven. It's another chapter when we're talking about the Son of God, where that idea came from. We're going to read about Daniel 7 and his vision, what he saw, the Son of Man that was seen in the lion's den in Babylon. So all this we are going. So that's why I'm saying I have to do it in series. So these are the scholars that I'm going to use. So and before we delve deeper, I need to jump to re-enthuse and re-emphasize that what we should understand is that it took over 1,000 years for the New Testament to be canonized. Over 1,000 years for the New Testament books to be written. The 27 years, as you know. And Columbia professor William Harris stated that 10% of the population then could not read or write, and the 10% were coming from the upper class with money, with time and leisure to afford education. And Jesus himself around that time, lived around that time, where literacy was so high. So people are just saying whether he went to school or not. This study is not, we held emotions at bay. We don't need to be emotional. It's a study. There is a statement that was written by Catherine Yeager, the professor of Jewish studies, where at the University of London, she showed that in Jesus' time only 3% of Jews were literate in Judea, and the native language of the Judean people, according to these scholars, according to Mark, the native language was Aramaic. So, according to these scholars, Mark was the first gospel. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Mark was the first gospel, and it was dated around 70 CE. Luke and Matthew were canonized in 80 to 85 CE. And lastly, John was written 90 CE. When we're saying CE, 70 CE, meaning after the death and the burial of Jesus. So Mark was written around 65 to 70. We are saying maybe 40 years after Jesus was buried, or after Jesus died. And Luke and Matthew were written 80 to 85 CE. That's 50 to 55 years after Jesus died. And John Yohanani was written 90 CE. So according to these scholars. So the authors of these books were not the original followers. The authors of these books, the Synoptic Gospels, were not original followers of Jesus, nor his 12 disciples. The authors, Lanyori, they were not followers of Jesus, or they were not followers of his disciples. They were later Christians who had heard the stories about Jesus. Is the story circulated month by month, year by year. For example, from a Lucan perspective, we are talking about Luke. From let's hear what Luke says. I'm saying these guys who wrote the New Testament, they were not Jesus' disciples. They were not even they were not the scholars who wrote the New Testament did not follow Jesus, and they were not followers of his 12 disciples. They were later Christians. This we can, for example, Luke when he was writing letter, dedicating a letter to Theophilus. This you can get from Luke chapter 1, verse 1 to 4, just 3 verses. Listen to what he says. Luke says, verse 1, inasmuch as many have undertaken to compile a comparative of the writings that have been accomplished among us, just as those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word that have been delivered to us. Luke was writing a letter to Theophilus. So Luke says, verse 3, it seemed good to me, Luke, also, having all the things closely and thoroughly done through research for some time, I write in an orderly fashion or account to you, Theophilus, the most excellent. This Luke, that you may have certainty concerning the things you might have heard. I'm writing to you, certifying things that you have heard. After doing a thorough research, after investigation, after comparative analysis of the literature that was told, that were given by the eyewitnesses who saw the disciples of Jesus. So Luke is saying, I did not say Jesus, it's just a research. Remember, Luke was an assistant of Paul. So Luke explicitly states that he knows of earlier written accounts of Jesus' life. Him, Luke, and Matthew were referring to the Markan writings. The Markan writings are writings by Mark, and this doc is called the Q or Quelle, the document that they Luke and Matthew read. It was called the Quelle document. The document no longer survives. It once existed, but it's no longer there. So Luke and Matthew got all this from that document called the Quelle document. So I'm now at where I'm trying to find the sources of information about the historicity of Jesus, whether they existed. So let me start with the Roman reference to Jesus. The Roman reference to Jesus. The writings are not in Jesus' time or Christian time from the Roman Empire. They were writings about 80 to 85 CE. That Jesus died 30 to 33 CE, and these documents now from the Roman Empire were coming in around 80 to 85 EC. That's 50 to 60 years after the traditional death of Jesus. So from the Roman Empire, we have people like Pliny the Lesser. So Pliny the Lesser, this Pliny the Lesser is not a Christian. It's not a Christian. It's not a Christian. So Pliny the Lesser, what did he say about Jesus? So the first surviving reference to Yeshua, I'm saying Yeshua or to Jesus, by non-Christian source was Pliny the Lesser. Pliny was governor of the Roman province of Asia Minor. Asia Minor is now Turkey. So he was writing a letter to the emperor in Rome. So this was his 10th letter to Rome about Christian groupings around. It was done around 110 CE. We said Jesus died 30-33 CE, and this Pliny is writing this letter after 90 to 100 years. So Pliny was writing this letter to the emperor. So in Pliny's province, a law was enacted. Why he wrote the letter? There was a law that was enacted making it very legal for people to gather. Why were people not allowed to gather? So in this 10th letter, Pliny was complaining to the emperor that Christians drink human blood and human flesh. And if you still remember from the Bible, Pliny was referring to Jesus' Passover statement when he said, "He who does not eat my flesh and my blood is not with me." So so Pliny was writing, complaining that these so-called Christians, from their hymns, they sing about drinking human blood and eating, so they are cannibals. So unfortunately, the Roman emperor took all these Christians and they were killed, they were executed. So because Pliny the Lesser, it informed the emperor that these people, they mention in their hymns the Son of God. When they see, it was in that letter, the 10th letter that he wrote in 110 CE. It was talking about that these people, they sing a certain name, they call Son of God, Son of no. So that's why, so they were killed. So another evidence comes from Suetonius, whether Jesus existed. Suetonius was the most famous for being the biographer, someone who collects, who writes history about the emperor. So he was very pronounced and is the famous biographer of 12 Roman emperors. And in his book, Lives of Caesar, that he wrote in 115 CE. So in that book, it was him who said that Claudius, the emperor of Rome, at one point deported the Jews from Rome because of riots that had occurred. Acts 18 verse 2. If you read Acts 18 verse 2, which I'm not privy now to read because of time, but if you read for yourself, Acts 19 verse 2, there's a story there that says Claudius deported all the Jews in Rome. That's why did Claudius deport the Jews? Because there was an argument. The Jews why were they arguing? Because the Christianity it just started, and the Jews who were Messianic Jews, those who believed in Yeshua, in Jesus, and there were others who did not believe in Jesus, but they were all in Rome. Remember, Judea was under the Roman rule. So, but already the issue to do with Jesus was doing rounds. So there were other Jews who were saying, "This is the Messiah," and others were saying, "No, he was not the Messiah." Because you then read from the Wisdom of Solomon, from the Book of Solomon, and from the book of the Testament of Reuben, and the Testament of Simeon, the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. They alluded to a Messiah as someone who was going to be a king of the Jewish people. Because remember, they were living under the Roman tyrannic rule. So they were being tortured, they were being butchered, they were being oppressed by the Roman. So the Jews, the message that was there then, not now, then, was that the Messiah would be a king. When that king will come, on the second series, you see that. When that king came, he was going to destroy all the Jewish enemies. So these Jews, the other Jews were saying, Jesus is not. Because when he was crucified, how could a king, how could a Messiah, we're waiting for someone who was going to free us, who was going to redeem us from the Roman Catholicism, from the Roman tyrannic rule. So he's dead. This person is a failure. So others were saying, it's him. And others were saying, it's a failure. So there was a war between the Jews themselves in Rome. So Suetonius wrote this in his book. He was not part of the system. So he was there's a verse that I've told you about on Acts 18 verse 2. So he was saying, that was the altercation. That was the argument. So we have another scholar called Tacitus. So Tacitus, in his Annals of Imperial Rome, mentions the fire that consumed a good portion of Rome is from Tacitus. So there was fire that consumed a good portion of Rome during the reign of Nero in 64 CE. So in 64 EC, Nero, who was succeeded by Vespasian, and there was fire that consumed a great portion. So people thought it was Nero, because Nero wanted to restructure the empire, and then when he thought of that plan, some other gentlemen of the jury didn't like that, so they didn't agree with him. So what did he do? Then he put it in Ason. So he said, now when Nero himself, he said he put the empire in Ason, Akapisa. And now to shift the blame, he said the Asonists were Christians. So he said the Asonists, those who had burned the empire, were Christians. So what did they do? So all the Christians were cornered and they were butchered, they were killed. So so he mentions that document that Christians. So what this is evidence is Nero is not a Christian, but he said Christians in Rome were the Asonists. So that's one other source outside the Bible. See. So another source is the Jewish source. Let's look at we have tied some small writers from the Roman Empire. Now I'm touching the Jewish sources. From the Jewish sources, we have the historian of all the time called Josephus, Flavius Josephus, who was born around 6 to 7 years after. So we say 40 CE, after the death of Jesus. So before Josephus was an author. Before Josephus was an author, he was involved in politics. He was in military affairs in Jewish Palestine. So this Josephus is a Jewish historian of all the time. So in 66 CE, there was a major uprising in Palestine, in Judea, in which the Judeans sought to overthrow the Roman tyrannic rule. So the Romans sent troops to suppress it, and so many soldiers were killed. And yet Josephus, this Josephus we're talking about, was the military leader, was the general. So after that, Josephus, when the uprising was suppressed, so the Josephus was spared, because Josephus was very smart, he was very intelligent. So otherwise all the soldiers were killed. So with his wits, Josephus then when he was caught by Vespasian to be killed, to be exterminated, now he was spiritually smart. So with his wits and spiritual prowess, this is what Josephus told Vespasian. He said to Vespasian, I see in a vision, this is Josephus, I see in a vision, after the death of Nero, you are going to be the Roman governor, Roman emperor. But he was supposed to be killed. So he said that to Vespasian. So which prophecy came true when after Nero committed suicide in 68 CE, then Nero, who had set the Roman Empire on fire, he committed suicide in 68 CE. And Vespasian's troops declared Vespasian is an emperor. Now, and to thank Josephus with that vision for his spirit of precognition, he made Josephus the emperor, the interpreter in Rome. So Josephus now, because Vespasian was happy, so Vespasian, the Roman emperor, made Josephus the interpreter. So Josephus was now electable. Electable is like a laptop. Like a laptop is a dog, a small dog that sits on someone's lap. So Josephus, now the writers call him, was a laptop of Vespasian. So that's why the rabbis complained that Josephus and Vespasian created Christianity. We will see it. Created this Christianity. It was Josephus. That's what they think. So from his book Antiquities, the Antiquities is what they call it Magnum Opus. It has 20 volumes. This I'm talking about Josephus, the Jewish historian. In that volume, he wrote the history of the Jews from the time of Adam down to his day, and he called that book Antiquities of the Jews. So in that book, in 2 occasions, he mentioned about Jesus of Nazareth, especially book 20 of the Antiquities. Joseph mentioned in his book about an incident that happened, Josephus, about the incident that it happened in 62 CE in Judea, about uprising. So when the local civic religious leader in Jerusalem, the high priest Annas, misused his power and unlawfully put James to death. And now Joseph, the death of Joseph was associated by Josephus. So Josephus said they killed this high priest Ananias. They were not Ananias and Cephas. They killed James, who Josephus identified as the brother of Jesus, who was called the Messiah. So this found in Antiquities 20 verse 9. So for those who want to search. And another perspective from Jewish literature, we have the rabbinic sources about Jesus, especially from their book called Mishnah. The Mishnah is the traditional knowledge, a collection of rabbinic teachings about Jewish law and based on oral tradition that had been in circulation during the 3rd century or 200 years after Jesus. So in the Mishnah, Jesus, if you read very well, Jesus did not appear in the oldest Mishnah, but the Gemara now. In the Gemara, they called him Ben Pantera. So we are talking about the existentiality of Jesus, Ben Pantera. And Pantera, this says the Gemara to Jesus. So they called him Ben Pantera. And Pantera was a Roman soldier who was said to have seduced Mary, the hairdresser. So just mention that he was there. This is evidence. So we have Q, M, and L sources, like I've alluded to in the previous paragraphs. So Matthew and Luke used Mark as their source of information. Although they used Mark as their source, they share a number of passages that are not found in Mark. For example, the Lord's Prayer and the Beatitudes. The Lord's Prayer and the Beatitudes are not found in Mark, but Luke and Matthew have got such a chapter, or the chapters. So it means these did not come from Mark. So there could be another source called the Q or Quelle, which Matthew and Luke have in common, and is dated around 50 CE. So other sources, we have we now come to the canonized, the New Testament, and other sources outside the New Testament. And we also need to understand that every single source that mentions Jesus up until the 18th century assumed that he actually existed. That is true no matter what period you choose to examine. Whether the Reformation, the Renaissance, the Middle Ages, late Antiquity, and even before. It is true of every source, from our earliest periods, or the 4th century, the 3rd century, the 2nd century, or the 1st century. And it's true from every author of every kind, be it Christian, be it Jewish, or be it pagan. This idea that Jesus did not exist is a modern phenomenon. The idea that Jesus did not exist is a modern notion. It is no ancient precedent. It was made up in the 18th century This is what we need to know. It was made up in the 18th century that Jesus didn't exist. One might well call it a modern myth. You see, so this is about Jesus. So let's look at Christian sources, not canonized. We have Papias. It's a Christian source. We have Papias. This book, or it's not been put in or canonized. Papias was a church father of the early 2nd century whose writings survive for us only in fragments, as they are quoted by later Christian authors. From these later sources, we learn that Papias had written a 5-volume work called Expositions of the Sayings of God, or the Sayings of the Lord. This large book is normally thought to have been written around 120 to 130 CE. So from Papias, he was then supported by a great church historian called Eusebius. So Eusebius supported that, in so many, or the literature that Eusebius began using was coming from Papias. So again, we have Ignatius of Antioch. Ignatius was one of the most significant authors of early Christianity from outside the New Testament. He was bishop of the large and important church of Antioch in Syria, and was caught up in a persecution of Christians that happened there probably in 110 CE. So what had happened was that the persecution had some kind of official Roman sanction. Ignatius himself was arrested for Christian activities. We don't know specific charges that were leveled against him, but he was sentenced to be sent to Rome for martyrdom. And that Ignatius, the same guy, wrote 7 letters, which you still have today in the Bible. 6 of these letters are written to the Church of Asia Minor, which is Turkey, that had sent representatives to meet him on his way to Rome. And he said to them, "Let me die like our Messiah." So that it shows that Jesus was, they knew about Jesus, and he existed. So another source is 1 Clement. 1 Clement in 90 CE. So the letter of 1 Clement was written by the Christians in Rome to the Church of Corinth in order to straighten out what was to them an unsatisfactory turn of events. So 1 Clement. So the leaders of Corinthian church had been ousted from power and replaced by others. And the Roman Christians, at least those responsible for the letter, didn't like it in Rome. So the letter was meant to urge the church in Corinth to return their elders to their rightful places. So it is attributed by tradition to the 4th bishop of Rome, so who was Clement, even though the letter itself does not claim it was Clement, but it was written by Clement. So the 4th bishop of Rome was called Clement, so they attribute to that effect. So Clement gave us some information that we are using about the existence of Jesus. So another one is we can look at the canonical sources outside the gospel. The other books canonical outside the gospel, they did not survive to be put in there. The books outside the gospel, we have 4, the gospel 1, 2, 3, 4, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But there are other books outside the gospel, like the book of Acts. So the book of Acts of the apostles provides a narrative of the spread of Christianity throughout the Roman Empire in the years after Jesus' death. So from that book, there are so many stories around the issues to do with the existentiality of Jesus. We have other issues to do with Paul, and the most important here in important figure of all the time is Paul. So in 1 Thessalonians and Romans, these were written, 1 Thessalonians and Romans were written, these books were written in 49 CE and 13 years after Jesus' death. And the Apostle Paul is very important in this, because Paul, he says in the Bible, when I went to Jerusalem, I met Peter, Cephas, and James, the brother of Jesus, and I stayed with them for 14 days. So this he stays in Galatians 4 verse 4. Galatians 4 verse 4. But when the fullness of time came, God sent his son. So he got this information from James and from Paul, who were at Jerusalem that time. So Paul is said to have converted to Christianity around 34, 35 to 40 CE. So Paul gives us evidence that Jesus existed, because he said, I don't lie. I went to Jerusalem and I saw James and I saw Peter. So Paul's information came earlier, around 40 CE. So all the letters of Paul, the Pauline letters, were the first ones to be written, because these were letters. So that's what we have, and this is our I can say series number 1. Then next time I'll continue from where we have left. We now there's a very heated argument about the Nicene Creed, when they uplifted Jesus to the position of God, and historians are saying we need to, through facts, through objective or deductive reasoning, we'll get the answer. So this was just an introductory. It's very long, because sometimes if you just cut, information must be. People they can watch TV for 10 hours, but when it comes to things to do with God, they have no time. No, it's a challenge we have in this world. I like to watch animals, elephants, wildlife. I can watch those for 2 hours, but when it comes to the Word of God, I have no time, which is a problem in this generation. So thank you so much for coming to this lecture. I really appreciate, and let's wait for another the second subject pertaining to this topic: did Jesus exist? Amen, amen, and amen.